So the one I've chosen for today, and please keep them coming, the question about boundaries, is about how to set boundaries with in-laws. And the one that I've chosen, which has a little bit of everything in it, I'm going to read it out now, which was sent to me. And of course, it's not going to be mentioned with names and stuff like that, but you will still know what it is about. Right, so the one I got was, hi Heike, I wanted to reach out for advice on setting healthy boundaries, which is helpful, with my mother-in-law. Due to my child's health challenges, her involvement in our family is necessary at times. However, we have a strained relationship that I doubt will ever be repaired. She's often harsh, judgmental, and passive-aggressive towards me, with much left unsaid but always implied. My husband tends to brush off her behavior, which is easier for him as he isn't the target. He also doesn't intervene when her actions towards me are more than evident. Her help often feels invasive, crossing personal boundaries, and she tends to taking on tasks that aren't hers to handle. When it comes to our child's care, she remains silent until she disagrees with something and then responds with negative and often judgmental opinions. While I remain respectful and try to keep my distance to preserve her relationship with her son and granddaughter, the way she treats me is unhealthy. I need guidance on establishing healthier boundaries with her. I would prefer she focus on being a mother to her son and a grandmother to her grandchild rather than offering unnecessary help. Would also love some insight on how to protect myself in the various family WhatsApp groups. Now, that's a good one. I share with her. I believe she uses these groups as a tool to get her messages across without being direct. In broader family groups, she showers others with excessive praise, which is a stark contrast to how she interacts with my immediate family. I wish I could leave some of these groups, but doing so would mean cutting off other family members. So there is a whole lot going on here, and I'm sure a lot of us can actually completely see themselves in one or having been or are in one or several of those situations. Now let's just bring this down. So this lady is married with a child that has different health needs, has an unhealthy relationship or a strained relationship with her mother-in-law, needs her help every now and then, but it's extremely unhealthy and not going down very well and has no backup. So here's Heike's advice. And what I think, and might or might not help, of course, it's always a matter of what you're prepared to do. So firstly, thanks for reaching out. And it is definitely a very exhausting space to be in, but it's multifaceted. Because firstly, I want to say your biggest challenge is not your mother-in-law, that's your husband. Because A, it's his mother, and B, why is he not backing you up, A, as a husband and the father of the child as well? So I'm going to come to the mother-in-law right away. But at the moment, when I read it, the first thing was it's a typical you against them scenario. So it's not even you and your husband and your family against someone or like seemingly against someone. It's you as an individual person and mom against your mother-in-law. There's no unit on your side, at least that's how it's perceived. Now, I'm not sure where the strained relationship is coming from or what the history is about, but what I read is like, I have a husband, but there's no backup, there's no unity, I'm standing on my own, I'm battling this, everything is territorial, and I'm trying the best with what I know and how I know it. I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, I'm not being backed up. There's a lot going on here. So your number one issue here, actually, a stumbling stone, is your husband and the relationship and you guys not having each other's back in whichever way that would be necessary or not. Again, obviously, there's some different versions of what the past was, this, that, and the next thing. But fact is, A, it's his mom, so he would need to be the one who sets some ground rules together with you. It should be an us setting the rules, what's okay for us, A, for our child, and B, about you, what's okay for you, and him certainly backing up certain things. It's not all for him to do, but there needs to be some common ground. So number one is you've got to sit down with your husband and look at those things first. Then, because the thing is, and we don't even know why the mother's doing what she does. It might be playing down her wanting to interfere. It might be a power struggle. Very often, people interfere the way they do because that's the only way they do know. So there's lots of different reasons. I'm not sort of about taking sides. But what this is about is everything it's now about, because it's them against me and somebody has to be right and somebody has to be wrong. Our filters or your filters are right now set to whatever comes out of this woman's mouth or it doesn't. What's being said or not is going to be running through this negative filter because that's the experience. You're constantly on high alert. Plus, there is no backup from your hubby or no perceived backup from your hubby. Not only is he not backing you up, he's sweeping it under the carpet, actually, kind of like with that giving you the message, like, it's all not that big. What she does is like, no here, no there. It's like you blowing it up. So it's kind of like belittling how you're feeling as well. So it's way more beyond that. And the main issue, problem for you right now, somebody's going to deal with that, is your attachment to her. Because right now, no matter what she does or not, she controls how you feel about it. Even if she would now say something that has nothing to do with you, because the way the relationship is with the two of you, your brain will automatically attach, but she meant this, or she meant that. So to get with that is, number one is you need to sit down with your husband. And you to say, like, we need to have a very clear, A, who we are to each other and how we present ourselves to anyone, not just a mother-in-law, as a unit, as parents, and B, as partners, because that's clearly not there. Because if this would be a solid unit, no one from the outside, including your mother, his mother, any mother, could actually get to that spot. That only works with divide and conquer. Secondly, also, it has to be clear, because with her taking on seeming unnecessary tasks and stuff like that, well, it needs to be very clear what her role is, what is and what isn't. Has that ever been clear? And has it been backed up by whom? You, your husband? What is the role definition of her? Because with you saying she's crossing personal boundaries, has that ever been, that indicates there have been boundaries from your side that you had communicated, but they had been crossed. But what were the consequences of these boundaries? Because very often we confuse. I said, please don't do that, but then you do it anyway, and then we just leave it at that, and I just be mad with you. And I'm not saying what she does is wrong or right. Please don't get me wrong. But a boundary is the next time you please don't do that. But should you still choose to do that, I will then, and there needs to be a consequence that can be and only will and has to be reinforced by you. So when people can repeatedly cross your personal boundaries, then that was just a request, because it means now there was no follow through. It was like, oh, Heike, please swear, don't swear when you're around me. And I'm kind of like, nah, I like swearing, I swear anyway. And it stays with that, and then you're just going to be mad at me, but so be it, there's no consequence. But if somebody says to me, Heike, if you're going to keep on swearing around me, I'm just going to leave. I'm going to hang up. And that's something that you have to pull through. So this is very often where we get so stuck where when we're saying, I've put boundaries out there, but they're just not going with it because it was a request. So, and do they need to be healthy? Totally. But the first thing that needs to happen, and it's hard, and it's on your part. Again, we're not looking for a victim or for someone who is wrong and who is right. You've got to emotionally disconnect a bit more, because you're in fight flight, you are on defense mechanism, and as long as you do that, you're gonna answer and respond from a defensive point of view, which is very human, but it's not going to help you with boundaries, because boundaries there is a very clear, neutral space of this is what it is. I hope you like it, because if not, you're gonna have to wrap your brain around it, and doing it in a kindest way. I'm going to reinforce it. It's also not would you like or would you not like. This is what it is going to be. If I can help you that you're comfortable with it, I'm most likely going to do that. But you trying to guilt me, this, that, or the next thing is not an option. It avoids anger and all of that. But as long as I set boundaries out of anger, it's not a boundary. Then it's often a punishment, and it's a power game. There's only one mother here and there's only one grandmother. And so things like it's the whole like you're not being seen, not being heard, not being like every time she opens her mouth and your husband doesn't back you up. What you hear is not good enough. They don't think I know what to do. They say I'm a bad mother, all those kind of things. And it's played out on the back of your daughter. But it's ultimately got very little to do with your daughter. If anything, it irks you because the daughter is the link that you have to put up with her, because otherwise you wouldn't. So this is like really, you've got to emotionally detach. She is who she is, and she's got the right to be who she is, just like you've got the right to be who you are. The boundaries bring that neutral space that you can disconnect. She will always be who she is. It's not about changing her. It's about you taking your power back, that you determine how you feel about it and not her. So this is literally taking that back. So you've got to be very clear what her role is together with your husband. And it should actually be then communicated by your husband or both of you to her. And it doesn't have to be ugly or horrible. It just needs to be clear, because you most likely find that it has never been clear, or not very clear, or like clear on one day, a different story on another day. So, and very often we assume she should know that, he should know that. But if there's mixed messages, they do what's most conducive to who they are, their personality traits. That's also just human. But your husband got to start choosing, not choosing, but also like stop hiding in the background here. He's chosen you as his wife, and he's chosen to be a father. So he's got to stand for that as well, within reason, of course. But he can't just stand back because he is not in the receiving end. Also, as long as everything is personal, we cannot have boundaries. Because as long as we are on defend, we're in survival mode. Boundaries is about we stay in peace, and you can't get me out of peace no matter what is. And I will be there with empathy, and I will be there with gratitude, but not with anger, not with resentment, because it avoids getting there. This is my space, this is where Heike starts and ends, and this is where you start and end, and there's a small line where it overlaps. And this is where we're going to be clear, and they're going to show up there all authentically. But I will not water it down. I don't want you to water it down, because the moment it gets inauthentic, it's a surefire way to resentment. And I'm refusing to do that to you and myself, and with that your child as well. So it's got to be depersonalized. You really got to desensitize that. And I know it's easier said than done. But as long as we have it personalized, we're giving the people that we least wanted all the power. So, again, everything in our life is neutral until we attach something to it. This can be your biggest lesson with the biggest growth, or it can be the biggest stone of contention in your entire life that you're trying to prove something that has nothing to prove. Because boundaries do not need approval or agreement. They just need your decision and your follow through. Those are things that you decide, after obviously looking at them properly. And if others agree or not is actually not important. But at the same time, we need to also then be prepared to be uncomfortable, which brings us to the WhatsApp groups. With you saying, oh, I would love to be off some of those groups. Of course, the extreme is like you can simply say, hey, I'm having a social media break. I'm not going to be in any, I'm leaving all WhatsApp groups now. You know where to find me, all the best. That's all. You don't need to justify it. You don't need to over-explain it. But hey, we are in too many of those things, and it drives us nuts. And it's not, you're not obliged to be in any family WhatsApp groups. You're still a family member. People know where you live. People know have your numbers. You do not have to be in 20 groups. And if you just simply tell them, this is why I'm doing it, nothing personally, off you go. Well, I don't see why there should be an issue. And those that have an issue with that exact reason why there isn't, then they either ask for clarification if you want to give that. And I'm not going into bitch mode. Me then going into broken record. No, I just need a break because I need to concentrate more on other stuff in my life, and it's taking up too much time. So no. So that's one option. Yes, you can leave WhatsApp groups. The world will turn. People will get over it. They will still breathe, and they will just learn to communicate differently with you, just like they have before we had all those gadgets. The second option would be you just literally, technology, we have options. You go with things like, You can mute the group. You just uncheck the show notification thing that it doesn't come up in your face all the time. Because now with you being on high alert with her, now you're going to check constantly, what is she up to now? So you're already wasting time on what is she up to before she does anything, and then set the filter, and then checking, and so on, because this is all being in the defense mechanism. And this is already investing into something you do not want. So take yourself out of the equation. So if you don't want to go all off and say like, hey, which I think you would actually love, but you don't want to be the bad one that others might think you're the bad one. But why would they think that if you say to me, hey, Heike, I need to go on a social media kind of detox. I'm going off WhatsApp groups because I need to concentrate on other things that are healthier for me. Me wanting the best for you, I'd say, good for you. You know where my number is. And vice versa. People that care want the best for you. And some will sometimes maybe go like, oh, that's unusual. You can still say it's nothing personal because it isn't. It's about you. It's not about others. It is about you. And you're the only one who's responsible to make sure that you are balanced. And that is okay. You don't need to justify it. But we're so worried what others think or might not think, and half the time we give them too much benefit of thinking anyway because they don't. So get off this group or mute it or just get very silent, check in every now and then, take the notifications off, or go completely off and say, hey, my hubby is on because he happens to be part of your family. He will keep me informed about the big stuff I need to know. Other than this, you have my number. They can all relearn to communicate with you, and vice versa. It's not like you're not family member anymore. You hate the whole group. No, it's your responsibility to do what's best for you. And so there's several options for it, because you can't unsee it and you can't unfeel it until you slowly learn and allow yourself and give yourself the gift of detaching emotionally from it. So, and yes, unsolicited advice and help and opinions are a boundary violation. You're completely right about that. And especially when it's repeated. And irrespective of like, oh, it wasn't my intent this, or it wasn't my intent that. It is simply, but that is only if a boundary has been set. So, and there people also do it for very different reasons. Some really do it to interfere. Some do it for power games. Others literally don't know how to show up any different. Hi, everybody. It's Heike with Boundary Monday. Others literally don't know how to show up any different and have never learned any different. For others, is actually a trauma response from childhood. Being of help and assistance is the only way that they actually gain their own security and their own worthiness from. So there's different reasons why people do it. That's why we need to be very clear when we set those boundaries. There's many ways we can do that. So one is simply like, yeah, I hear you, but we prefer it this way. Or very often what I do is just like, that's interesting, or like, noted. You don't need to argue it, you don't need to defend it, you don't need to do it either. Or simply, that's an interesting opinion. Or sometimes it's not even bad, but because our filters are already set of kind of like, I don't care what comes out of that person's mouth. It doesn't matter what comes, we already don't like it. But it doesn't always have to be harsh either. Sometimes we need to be very direct, depending on which person. I can literally say, and this is always a good thing, when it comes that you're not sure, that you literally ask, I'm not sure how to take it right now. Was it supposed to be helpful or hurtful? Please clarify. That's normally when they back out very quickly. Because now you're asking, you're not assuming. And they're hardly ever going to say it was meant to be hurtful, of course. And when they say it was, I said, I thought as much. Okay, fine, I'm glad we agree. That sets it very clear that you do know the differentiation. You are not having it, and you will call that person out without causing a fight. So depending on who it is, or sometimes some humor does it. So it's like literally, oh, I'm sure you have some marbles on wisdom. That's interesting, but I'm still investigating into it. I'll let you know. So it really depends on the situation. But sometimes the less serious we take it, the easier it is to get over it. People do what they know within what they know and who they are. And this setup, because it's a bit of a codependency and you need her sometimes and so on. It's also catch-22, because from her side, I can assume that if you need me every now and then, but in between you can't stand my guts, it's not going to be the easiest smooth flowing thing both ways. And yes, you saying, hey, listen, I would rather like you concentrating on being my husband's mother and my child's grandmother, but stay out of my way. Well, you guys need to decide first if you are a unit or not as a family before the mother-in-law comes in. Because what you're saying is the three of us are not a family. So you don't need to treat us as a family. Or you guys say, we are a family, and you treat yourself as a unit, and then she needs to treat you guys as a unit. Because if you expect your husband to stand up for you, then you need to generally deal with her as a unit. So, and I know it's not about pointing fingers at you, but the only person you have control over here right now is you. So it needs to be clear. Are you unhappy a unit regarding your daughter? Or is it you against them? Because that is both what you're saying at the moment. Is she is either a mother and a grandmother, and she just leaves me out of this. Or you want your husband to check you up and we are a family and do it like that, which is much healthier and more maintainable. So have a look at that. Either way, does there need to be boundaries? Yes. And healthy boundaries are not just about others. We need to have them with ourselves first. So I don't want to carry on forever here because I could. But, and some boundaries will always ruffle some feathers. But it's like, we want to make it right. And this is also when we are exposed to those kind of, all of our childhood wounds come out, not being seen, not being heard, not being good enough, being questioned, not being chosen. So it's me against them. Put it down. This is what's good for me, that I can show up the most authentic at my best. And the most authentic is my child. The moment someone triggers me, that's just a postman. It's your trigger. So I'm not saying she's wrong, you are right, and vice versa. But what it says is, stop training the monkey. Stop training a monkey. The monkey does what a monkey does. That's what a monkey is made for. Desensitize yourself and deal with it very factually and not over-emotional. It'll take a while because I've got a while to get there as well. But your number one thing is, whoops, see, I knocked myself out. Are you guys a unit? That's the first thing. And then it comes to your mother-in-law. Because I think that's where the divide is ultimately. And allow yourself to like sit down with your husband first and say, where are we with this? Because he's avoiding stuff for a very, very long time, what making you have all of that, and he just goes into the background. And I think there's a lot of discussions and talks. It's been long overdue between you and him when it comes to this, and also between him and his mom. So, and if nothing else helps, if nothing else helps, then, and hubby isn't prepared to meet you right now, and it's all a bit much at the moment, but you have the right to as well. You have the right to be human. And you don't always have to have all your squirrels in a row here, or ducks or whatever we have. You can literally get an au pair or nanny or something, rather put some money aside for that. You don't have to need your mother-in-law right now until you find a middle ground that you're comfortable to reestablish that or not. So this whole we owe this one to that one and that one, you don't owe anything to anybody. And if it costs you your soul and if it's constantly throwing you out and if it constantly keeps you in fight flight. So this, in short, is a combination of do some self-reflection. It's like, where's my trigger with this? Secondly, what do I want from this? Is it a unit? And we talk as a unit, as a family unit to my mother-in-law, or is it me and them? Look at those things. But it is exhausting. It's utterly exhausting. And you deserve better. You all do. So I hope you got something from that. It's obviously always short time. But send me more boundary questions. I've already got a few. So far, roughly, it looks like next week, Monday, 7 o'clock again. I'm going to do things, the session on boundaries regarding holidays and going away with spouses, family members, or whatever, when there is certain issues regarding substances and drinking and getting out of order and behavior kind of things. What's my rights to set boundaries or not? But that's the verdict is still out. I'll let you know during the week. But just send me questions. And boundaries can be tricky. So, but most of all, they need to be healthy. And there's a huge difference between boundaries and requests. Requests is if you do not have a consequence to reinforce it. A boundary is if you still choose that, then I will do that without attaching anger to it. So I hope that helped. Have a wonderful week and see you next Monday. Bye.